over 30 years now, people around the world have thrilled to the exploits of James Bond. He has all the characteristics of a classical hero: wisdom, bravery, strength, and a devotion to his friends and society. But this is polished by a worldly delight in all the pleasures life can offer. Lee Pfeiffer has written a book that chronicles the life and times of James Bond. Recently, I had a chance to sit down and chat with Lee about why this character has remained so popular in an ever-changing world. Lee, thanks for joining us here on The Trader. You've written a marvelous book about one of my favorite characters, James Bond.
Thank you, Warren. It was fun doing it. It really was.
The section I really enjoyed was where you talked about all the scenes that have been edited and changed, either in the writing or in the shooting or in the later editing.
Obviously, in the many years since Bond films have been made, since 1962, there's probably been an awful lot that hit the cutting room floor. Unfortunately, much of it doesn't exist any longer, but there are stories, and there are confirmed stories from the filmmakers of certain sequences that were filmed or planned that never made it into the final cut of the film.
Which one surprised you the most?
Well, one of the more intriguing aspects of a plot change was the script for Diamonds Are Forever, which was Sean Connery's big comeback film in 1971 when he had left the series in '67 and came back again for one film in 1971. The original script was supposed to have Bond menaced by the brother of Auric Goldfinger, and presumably the brother of Goldfinger was supposed to be played by Gert Frobe, who played Goldfinger in the original film. It was also supposed to be a massive sea battle where Bond enlists all these promotional vessels from the nearby casinos in Las Vegas and takes them out on the lake and pursues Goldfinger. Absolutely none of that ended up in the final script. And of course, the final film is completely different in tone than what they had originally envisioned.
Well, also, I think there was at least one performance that was shot and not included, wasn't there?
Yes, From Russia with Love, according to Peter Hunt, who was the editor of the early films and the director of On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Peter tells me that there was a sequence done in From Russia with Love that was very effective, in which Bond is being pursued by some enemy agents in a taxi cab, and his helper, Kerem Bey, arranges a traffic accident that blocks these Soviet agents from going after Bond. The only problem is that although the scene worked beautifully and was very amusing, when they were doing a preview screening, one of the producers' young children realized that the Soviet agent who appears in the traffic sequence was killed earlier in the film. And of course, to the consternation of everyone, they had to immediately go back and edit that sequence out. Although it killed Peter Hunt to do it, he said it was a very funny sequence.
Well, also in Diamonds Are Forever, there was a performance by Sammy Davis Jr., wasn't there?
Sammy Davis had a highly touted cameo performance in Diamonds Are Forever that ended up, like so many other things, on the cutting room floor. There are some stills of it that exist. I don't know how extensive his role was in it, but yes, after all the hype, Sammy never made it on screen with Bond.
Yeah, another one of the things in your book that was fascinating, actually it was kind of like going back to the Christmases of my childhood, was in your section on the collectibles.
Yes, we have a huge section in here on international collectibles, everything from Japanese models from the 1960s up to the A.C. Gilbert line. And that's an interesting story there, because A.C. Gilbert was one of the big toy companies in America in the 1960s. They had pioneered the Erector sets and things like that. And in the mid-60s, they had a huge line of spy toys that did very well. They had a lot of James Bond dolls and figures, Man from U.N.C.L.E. toys and things like that. However, Bond both made them and it broke them, because they created the James Bond Road Race set in 1965, which was an elaborate contraption, just beautiful-looking car race set. Sold for $40 in 1965, which was too much money for me to afford to get back then.
Me too. I
You were frustrated also, yes. Well, welcome
either.
to the club. Today it cost me $600 to replace it. But what happened was these things sold like hotcakes. They were primarily sold through Sears Roebuck, and sales were great, except the day after Christmas, when the kids started putting these things together, there was a technical flaw in it. They simply didn't work very well. They didn't work at all, in fact. Within a week, virtually every one of them was returned to Sears Roebuck. Refunds had to be given, and it drove A.C. Gilbert into bankruptcy.
Ooh. Lee, it's been nice having you here so we could talk about your book. It's a great book and a subject we all love. Thanks for joining us here on The Trader.
Appreciate it.
Lee's book is a wonderful reference to everyone's favorite secret agent. Here's Darla to tell you how to get your own copy of this great book.
The Trader has put together a thunderball of a James Bond offering, and it's for your eyes only. A signed first edition of The Incredible World of 007 for only $24.95. And as a bonus, we'll throw in a copy of GoldenEye, James Bond magazine, absolutely free. The Incredible World of 007, signed by author Lee Pfeiffer, is a definitive and authorized James Bond picture book. This oversized high-gloss volume has over 250 rare photos from the Bond archives, plus detailed coverage of every Bond film, including cast and crew lists, credits, critiques, and behind-the-scenes information and anecdotes, plus exclusive interviews with producers, actors, directors, and technicians that worked on the films, and an intriguing look at script changes, outtakes, and bloopers that never made it into the films. We have a very limited supply of this offering, 100 copies, and once they're gone for good. So give us a call at 1-800-SCI-FI-60 and get your own signed copy of The Incredible World of James Bond for only $24.95. And we'll send you a copy of GoldenEye, the James Bond magazine, absolutely free. This comes to you from the Trader with love. And now here's our very own Oddjob to tell you about what he's been spying on lately.
Thanks, Darla. You know, Bond girls have nothing on you. You've just seen Lee Pfeiffer's interview on his new awesome book, The Incredible World of 007. Lee and I recently met at the first annual James Bond convention here in Los Angeles, where I was asked by the Ian Fleming Foundation to coordinate a mind-blowing exhibit of original Bond memorabilia, which included a variety of full-size vehicles. I brought some photos along with me today to share them with you. Here's the Batha-sub from Diamonds Are Forever. This is a scuba tow sled from Thunderball. Notice the working headlights. A wet bike from Spy Who Loved Me. And two of my all-time favorites, the Lotus Esprit sub from The Spy Who Loved Me, and last but not least, the most famous car in the world, the original Aston Martin DB5 from Goldfinger, which was a dream come true to see in person for the first time. Notice the bulletproof shield behind the rear window of the Aston Martin. Part of the fun of setting up the display was unloading these beauties. Here you'll notice me making sure that the DB5 clears a tow truck as it's being ready to be brought into the exhibition. And here I'm unloading the Lotus Esprit. These valuable collector's cars really had to be handled with TLC. You know, the Aston Martin's appraised value is close to $1 million. If you want to learn more about the Ian Fleming Foundation, order Lee Pfeiffer's book and check out the free issue of GoldenEye magazine, which is published by the Ian Fleming Foundation and includes great stories on locating these historic pieces of Bond memorabilia. Now back to you, Warren.
Jim, up next, an exciting new computer game that combines lethal engineering and merciless combat. Rise of the Robots. Don't miss it.